Hey everybody, welcome back to my workshop. My name's Colin Way. Behind the camera today we've got Charlie. It's a very hot and sticky workshop today, hence the fan that you hear buzzing around in the background. I should imagine, if you're watching in the UK, it's pretty much the same thing, so bear with me today. I know it's a hot one, so it won't be an overly long session today. But there again, I say that on everyone and we get to the hour and I'm panicking and rushing, so fingers crossed. So if you remember, what did we do on, what's today? Tuesday, it's Thursday. Last week we were doing the fishing lures and we were turning them from line or any timber that's got a fairly sort of neutral grain, so not too coarse. And then we were doing some airbrush techniques on those as well. So like I said, for the keen fishermen out there, fantastic. But even for those people that aren't into fishing, hopefully there's a few bits in there that you can take away and put on your wood turning. So the airbrushing, holding on the lathe, those certain techniques. Today's no exception. We're going to be doing exactly the same sort of thing. So we're going to look at some fishing floats. So what I'm going to do, Charlie always asks at the beginning, is there going to be a lot of moving around today, Dad? Well, there's not really going to be a lot of moving around today, but to start with, we're just going to look at some of the bits and bobs I've got down here and an idea of what we're going to make. There's some different paints we're going to use, and finishing is really important for floats because they're going to be left in water. But yeah, come on down, let's have a look, see what you're doing here. Remember, if you're not keen on fishing, they look pretty anyway, and you maybe can sort of merge this into your everyday turning. How's that, Charlie? Is it looking good? Are we nice and close? That's the other thing. Okay, so these are the finished floats. Okay, so for the non-fishermen out there, pretty much what we would call coarse fishing floats. These, I wouldn't use these in this, well, possibly these actually, you could use in the sea, the bigger ones. You need something a little bit bigger, a bit chunkier, and usually a bit heavier for sea fishing, because you need to get a bit more distance with your casting and things like that. These are mainly for the rivers and the odd estuary fishing, that sort of thing. So here we are. So let me just explain what the float does. That float, again, this is, I'll pretend that you've never seen a fishing rod or heard of fishing before. So you have to excuse me. So these are going to suspend the bait from underneath. So you use a little rubber bung, sometimes only on the bottom. If you want it to lie flat until you get a bite, you have a rubber bung on the bottom here. And what happens is the line tugs from the fish, the float stands up. However, if you want your float standing upright all the time, you'll have a correct weight, with usually split shops to weigh the float down so it stands up nice and proud. These black lines, they're not just decoration, they're to tell you how deep the float is, so you can set it to one of the lines if you want to. And of course, bright colours, you need to see where your float is, especially as it starts to get dark, sort of dimpsy. You want to be able to see it needs to be visible. Okay, so there's some nice little floats. You can decorate these like you can fishing flies, like you can fishing lures. You can make them suit your colour if you wish. So there we are, some nice little selection there. You might have noticed we've got some cork. Now I've got two types of cork here. Okay, so this side, tell me where I am, Charles. Alright, so this side, this is quite a fine cork. This is made from old sanding block. And you might think, okay, that's quite expensive, but actually there's a couple of quid, £3 maybe. And with that, you could probably make a good half dozen to 8 floats with one of those. This one though, this is, if you're posh enough to have wine that has proper corks in it, then there we are, that's made from an old wine cork. I must have had that wine given me once because I wouldn't have bought it. But there, the wine or champagne corks. I haven't used the new sort of composite sort of rubber type corks at all. Sort of, the real stuff seems to work really well. So there we are, so a couple of different corks on that one, and these are just solid timber. Okay, a nice light timber. Don't use things like lignum or green heart because it'll only float and it won't. It'll only float. It'll only sink. Sorry, they're not really good for that for floats. But replicants. What's the word I'm looking for? To use instead of cork, you can use
replacements.
Replacements. That's it. Well,
Charlie.
It's hot. Charlie, sorry, it's hot. You can use balsa wood. Balsa wood is ever so light, and I just use that. You can get it from modelers' shops.
hobby shops, that sort of thing, and it's really light. I use that instead of cork quite often. Or of course you can make your solid float out of balsa. The only issue I have with balsa as a solid cork, oh my goodness, as a solid float, it gets quite brittle and these areas can break quite easily. And you know what it's like when you're fishing, they're going to get thrown around and they need to be fairly resistant to abuse. So let's do a solid one first, and I'm just going to do a solid one out of a piece of pine. So it's a nice light timber. We can get it from pretty much anywhere. I do have others here. I've got some tulip wood, which again is a nice light timber. Again, easily available from hardwood stores now. Balsa wood there. I'm not going to do a balsa wood one, it's too weak to do a thin one. But then the other one we're going to do afterwards is using just normal bamboo kebab sticks. Really good. These are all kebab stick floats. So we need to turn some cork to go around the kebab. And here's one that I've already prepped up. So we mount the cork first, and we're going to do one from start to finish for you. Mount the cork first, then we'll get it painted. Okay. So let's start with a nice easy one. We'll start with our solid wood one first. Ask Charlie any questions, he'll pass them on. Again. And I'll answer as best as I can in my mixed up words today. Must be the heat. Okay, so my nice go-to chuck, you know you've seen this one before, my knuckle duster I call it. Do be careful. If you're using one of these, do be careful. So I'm just going to pinch it in there. This is going to obviously be a little dumpy one. To start with, let's just use a nice small centre. You can go with anything single pointed, or let's, in this case, because we go quite small, let's go for a ring centre. And I'm going to expand the tailstock a fair way, just to get it out of my way really. At this point I'm not worried about centering up too much, as long as I'm close enough, because we're not going to be anywhere near that thickness. Drop the tool rest down, nice and close. Nice short one this is, so it's a nice easy one to start us off. I'll do a big one as well. This is not going to be a long session. Right, let's put my safety specs on first.
Just quickly.
Yeah.
So, when someone sharpen their skew chisel, they are coming out with a curved leading edge. Yours seems straight. The jig is set to 20 degrees. I quite like the curve, but I want at least one to be straight. How do you do that? Down.
Right, there we go. So that was very fortuitous. Now if you're on about this will be the arc of the handle as you sharpen. If you mean that angle there, then if it's a convex curve, that means there's some raising and lowering of the handle whilst you're sharpening. If it's concave, that's the just mimicking the shape of the wheel. But what I tend to do is it's a very slight concave grind that I'm getting, but then I hand home the edge with my diamond file. You just see me do that there, so that keeps it really nice and straight. If you've got one of the modern CBNs, you can actually sharpen on the side of the wheel, which is a really good tip, and that does keep it very straight. When I was an apprentice, we used to have a convex curve by doing the same thing, just sharpening on the side of the wheel, very slight convex, and that will really calm the skew down. Won't give you a sharper finish and as clean a cut, but it will give you a nice, easy skew to use.
How do you gauge how much shot weight you will need when you fish with it, or do you just know from experience?
No, you don't. It's trial and error. So once you've got your favourite float, then you will, of course. But it all depends on the bait that you're using at the time. So you trial it, you put it in, you see how low it is. If you need to put a bit more shot on, then add a bit more, and so on. So it's very different each time. There we are. Let's start then. Let's just do. We'll do one of our small little trotting floats. So one of those. going to be no surprises here that we're going to have the lace speed high. I'm turning there at 25,000, 2,500, 25,000 we take off. And we're just going to rough forward and back with the skew. Now remember, all the stress at the moment is on this side. That's the twisting action. So I'm going to keep a nice wide section up here, and let's make our body about there, okay? This is very similar to when I was turning the lace bobbin a few weeks back, when we were looking at skew turning. So we're going to not touch anything this side of our head at the moment, otherwise it'll be a little bit too weak and things will shear away. How are we doing for light, Charlie? Do you want a bit more?
Nope.
You happy?
Yep. Someone's stitched buffing wheel is glazed and loaded. How do you dress back to a good face?
Yeah, okay, that's a common one, that one actually. When you buff very little and often with your compound, once it's sort of clogged, just get a bit of rough sawn timber and polish away until it opens up that pore again. That's all you need to do. Get a bit of rough sawn timber. Now what I'll do on here, we're going to paint these while they're on the lathe. I just find it a lot easier. So we're just getting that skew right in there. I've gone for a nice small skew. Even this one though, you know, we're getting quite close, so a little bit of care. And if you've got a smaller skew, then use it if you're feeling a bit nervous. Alternative jaws. I must say alternative jaws, because I've been used to these for years and years and years. These jaws, they will hurt me if I touch them. So my body's learned to avoid it at all costs. I wouldn't start out, if you're not used to different jaws, I would start off with something like those. They are far safer for you.
Trying to get the camera in closer.
Oh, okay. They're far safer for you. Yeah, go for it, Charlie. They're far safer. All right, going to protect your knuckles a bit more. Tell me if you want me to stop the lathe. Right, I'm just going to do a very... Oh, let me wait until Charlie gets into position. Very nice. All right.
Yep.
Now, that's like the Taurus is going to pretty much stay there, Charlie, so you're okay. Very nice shot. Good. Right, so I'm just going to put a hint of a tail here. I'm not going to go down too narrow. And the same up here, not too narrow, because I'm going to do a little bit of sanding, delicate sanding. I don't want to stop the lathe. If I stop the lathe, the pure shearing action of the lathe starting back up again could cause me problems and things could break. So I'm not stopping the lathe.
Do you know if there's anywhere in Canada you can buy your skew chisels?
I did. So I've asked Crown, and they were going to get back to me. I haven't had a reply yet. Certainly over the border in the States, yes, but I haven't heard back about Canada. I've got your question from the last live video. So who was that, Charlie? Sorry.
Brian Wayne Sinclair.
So Brian, yeah, we'll get an answer for you, and I'll post that up. Okay. Like I say, I haven't heard from Crown yet, so I'll nudge them.
When you turn the cork, does it have to be specific stuff, or are the ones from wine bottles okay?
Yeah, one of those that I've shown you right at the beginning is off a wine bottle. They're perfect. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time. You know what it's like. I don't want you sat there, stood there, drinking your lager, Pimm's, Prosecco, whilst I sand. So, let me move on.
And what skew chisel are you using?
I'm using the Colway Signature Skew 12mm.
Size, yeah, 12.
There we are. Right, so I'm not going to stop the lathe just yet, like I said. Let's do a little bit of colouring. So I'm going to just lower the speed. Now I'm going to keep part of this natural, and then the other part coloured. So let's go with a nice bright pink at the top of this one. These are airbrush colours I'm using. Really, really bright airbrush colours. So we'll make a copy. We're just going to use the pink on this one. So there's a yellow that we'll be using later on, but they are luminescent colours. I'll get you to shake that one, Charlie, again. Airbrush paints need a long shake, 3 minutes minimum. I have shaken some of these already. So now, so I don't get my camera covered, I'm just going to...
With the lathe AC355,
yes,
can you use the SK114 chuck, or should they go for something smaller?
114 was absolutely fine on that machine, not a problem at all.
And what is the best jaws for an all-round starter to turn in?
I'll go with the C jaws. The C jaws are, I use the C jaws a lot. Okay, there's the C jaws. Sorry, I can't stop the lathe, so C jaws. C jaws really, because they've got a dovetail on the outside, a tooth on the inside. They support screw chucks, they support faceplate rings, the eccentric spiraling chuck. You can use all of that with them. So it's really, really good for that. Right, so a little bit of that. There's a colour, isn't it?
Your skews are people's favourites now.
There we are. So in this heat, this humidity, everything's drying really quickly, which is actually ideal for what I'm doing here. Now when we part this off in a minute, we'll have to just do a little dab on the top. This is on bare timber, so I might be getting a little bit of bleed, but I'm not too worried. Well, I'll tell you what I want, Charlie, my water bottle.
So this is from Chris Sullivan.
Yeah.
He is looking for different size diameter metal inserts, 2mm, 3mm, or drilling holes using indexer. Looking to make wooden tool post that sits in the tool rest, which the inserts fit into. Any ideas, suggestions?
Hi, Cal. I'm looking at different size diameter metal inserts, 2-3mm for drilling holes using indexer. To make wooden tool posts. Yeah, so I think what I might do, Chris, is just have a look and get you some part numbers. I won't be able to explain that one to Lily, but I think it'll be part of the routing gear. I might ask Craig to help me with that one, and we can look I think there are. I think it's 8mm we have. I don't think they start that small, so I think 8mm might be our smallest. But I'll have a think. We'll get back to you on that one tomorrow if that's okay.
How would you turn just the bulbous parts of the float so you could insert a brush, bristle and a wire stem?
Ooh, got me on that one. I don't quite know. And a wire stem. I think to whip some eyes on. I would probably drill it first, put the eye on, so do the painting with the hole on there and then take it off and do the whipping, if that's what you mean. Thank you for that one, Charlie. Right then, let's part that one off. Time's moving on. We are going to use our arrow, by the way, I think. So, tell me if my hand's in the way, Charlie. Is that alright?
Yeah, it's fine. What wood are you using?
In this case, it's a bit of just common pine. Nothing special really. In fact, I'll show you what it was in a minute. So we're just parting off. I'm now the tailstock, so we can remove the tailstock out the way. I'm trying to drop my hand down so it's not in the way. Now we're do the same thing with the top. When I've taken this off, Charlie, just pan back a little bit. There we are. So what do we need to do with that? We need to just touch up the top. Number one, light as a feather, that one. Really nice light. Tiny little trotting float, that sort of thing. Now we'll go over finishes in a minute because we need to put something over that, because on its own that timber's going to soak the water up, the paint's going to come off, everything. So we need to look at finishing those in a minute. But let me pop that one to one side just to dry whilst we do another one. Kebab sticks, or should we do a bigger hardwood one? No, let's go straight on to cork. So let's do that from the beginning. I've cut some little cork blocks. This isn't a wine cork. This is from the sanding block. Okay, so just literally cut from an old sanding block. Well, not old sanding block, new black sanding block. So I want to drill that out to start with. Now rather than hold a bit of cork here in my hand and drill it, and potentially drill my finger as well, I'm going to hold that in my chuck. It's soft, obviously, so can't grip too tightly, but we're only drilling a small hole. The kebab sticks are around about 3mm. Okay. Take that off, and we're going to replace our centre with a drill bit. These are just good fun to make, and they're such good practice for the skew. Gives you a huge amount of control when you're using the skew. I quite like that discipline. There we go, so little tiny 3mm drill bit.
Just quickly, so this is from Gentle Jim. He has cleaned the grease out of his SK114 every day this week, and it's still coming out of the chuck keyhole.
I haven't got back to Jim, have I?
The chuck is over a year old and still leaking grease. Any advice?
Yeah. Right, have a look at it, Jim. I'll tell you what. I'm going to be doing chucks and centres next week, but it's as simple as bring the camera in, please, Charlie. You know, I said it doesn't need to be opened. The grease stays there. So if it's doing too much, make sure you don't drop these in the shaving. So probably not do what I do. Take it and put it on a tray somewhere on the workbench. There we are. That's the inside. This chuck is a relatively new one. You can see the amount of grease in there, it's not liquid or anything, but if you're getting real problems, Tim, maybe just take out, these are called pinions, take out the pinion by removing that pin with a magnet. Okay, don't lose the pin. Now I'm going to get really dirty here, let me get some tissue. Pop the pinion out. Maybe don't wipe all the grease off, grease is doing the job. Alright, but just take out some of the excess, that's all. If it's really bothering you and it's really causing a problem, being a pain, a little bit around there, maybe wipe some of that off. Just do that once, like I say, leave some of it in there, it's really important for the use of the chuck. We mustn't let that go dry at all, otherwise it'll be a horrible feel and the parts will wear. But yeah, maybe just take out some of the excess if it's causing that bother. Don't lose the parts. I know I've said that already, but don't lose the parts. Don't get the grease or don't get dust in there.
What do you use to keep the lathe from rusting?
So that jar over there, Charlie, underneath the clock. That's so there's several things you can use on the bed of the lathe, and I certainly after doing any wet turning or any the sap as well as moisture will cause a lot of corrosion. The tannic acid in things like oak. I'm going to do that. Tannic acid in things like oak. But camellia oil is one of the best things for tools and the bed of the lathe. A couple of little squirts, especially in the winter. In the UK in the winter, the dampness in the air. Just a couple of squirts like that every now and again. And then get a little pad or some abrasive, just give it a little very light scouring, very fine abrasive, something like that, just to get rid of all that rust. And then don't wipe it all off, but just rub it in. Really give that bed a little bit of love. Right, yes. And that'll make it slide beautifully. Alright.
Someone has got the SK100 chuck. What can he get to fit this chuck to hold smaller work like the floats?
Like the floats. Go for a set of pin jaws. Okay, they are a variation on the old pin chuck. And what these do, they're designed to hold natural edges, but you drill a little 25mm inch hole, put these in and expand out. But they're great for holding small things on the inside as well. Okay, Lily, I don't know whether you can find those. I'll find them in a minute. Carefully move that smoker, Charlie. Grab me the catalogue. I'll find a part number for Lily. There we are, guys.
Where do you get the matting for the push plate?
Push plate. Access to tools. Lily, would you put up router matting, please? So I'm drilling here a little bit quicker than I would with normal timber. So that's up about 1300. And it just drills so easily. So all the way through. There we are. 3mm, remember, with the bow sticks. If you're doing a few, obviously get them all done to that first. There we are. Just a nice little centre hole. We're going to keep the chuck where he is. Perhaps you can pass me the catalogue, Charlie. Then we're going to add our stick. Position it where you want.
What sort of grease would you use in the chuck?
It's graphite grease in the chuck. Normally you wouldn't need to touch it, but obviously Jim's had a little bit of an issue with it there. So graphite grease you get in a tin, it's like a paste really. those jaws I was just talking to you about, guys, the pin jaws, the part number for those is 810067. 810067. They're called expanding pinch up jaws. I think Lily's going to put it up for us in a minute.
And what about using grease-free lube?
I really wouldn't know about that one. Grease-free lube. Graphite grease just does the job so well. I don't know. It's that. I'm not sure whether that would be a thick enough coating. Right. So let's just have a look. If I just try and turn that now, this is going to flip all over the place.
It's been half hour.
So I've got two variants here. Now I don't think as the company we sell this anymore, but these were great. These were for holding goblets and things like that. I've used them for holding balls. There's a little hole in there that I used to hold here. However, we have a solution. Solution will be, this is one of my normal long hole boring hollow lives. And I've just made a little wooden bung to go in the end, and I've drilled a hole in that wooden bung, and there's a chance we'll have it. It's just enough to fit over the top of our kebab stick. Don't push too hard. So what we're going to do with that one, in fact let me just take that out to glue it. I'm going to glue it in before we do anything else. And to do that, rather than hang around, let's go straight with our super glue here. Now go with the thin one, that's the Type Bond thin I'm using here, because that will work with capillary and pull itself down through the little void there. It's quite good for doing this sort of thing, so I'm going to prop it right up in there. It's soaking a nice long way, and it's hardening up the cork as well a little bit. Soak all the way down, and then what we're going to do is give it a little bit of a squirt with an accelerator. Watch your eyes when you do this. Make sure the gas is given off. Don't go in your eyes. That's good. So now we can go back in the chuck. There we are. Now you can barely touch this. It's only a kebab stick. It's only a fragile piece of kit, so take your time. That's a big lump of cork on there. Give you that jar just to pop to one side. Nice gentle cut. Pop it in a little bit further into that chuck. The other thing you'll notice, don't expect a really nice finish. We're going to sand this when we're getting close. This is going to be just sanded down. Oh, a little bit tighter. Back to the skew. There we are, that's all the turning we're going to do on that. It just won't take too much. We've got a little baby kebab stick going on there. Let's get the abrasive one over that. There it is.
What's the shelf life of the CA glue?
I don't know, I've never got to the shelf life because I've always used it too quickly. I'm guessing if you kept it, certainly if you keep it cool and not too hot, then it'll be a good sort of 6 to 8 months, I would have thought. I know I've had some that long that stayed okay. Look how easy that shapes.
And are you steadying the piece with your fingers?
Oh yeah, all the time. There's not a lot of strength in the kebab stick. There we are. So this is 100 grit. We're going to now just go down to a 150. I might even go to a 240. Let's just do a 240. The only reason I would do that is really for the paint to flow a little bit easier. It's quite, as we know, cork is porous. It'll soak it in really quickly, but a nice smooth surface help us get it to flow. Got enough time there?
Yeah, we've got 25 minutes. Would chopsticks be too big?
We turn them down. Yeah, turn them down. Probably make a solid one out of it. What did that? Yeah, you can probably make a solid one out of one chopstick. Right, then let's. Just going to knit the end. At 240, I've got little marks there. Don't press too hard, of course. We know what's going to happen if we press hard. And then you can go with your colour. So you've seen me do this. Let's just do a couple of splurges over it. So let's go big brush. You shook that one, didn't you, Charlie? Just do a little bit more shaking for me there, please. Let's go. I like doing this on the lathe. It gives you such crisp lines when you get the Sharpies out. We are layering this on quite a lot, so you think about letting this dry off the lathe as well. Right, Charlie, let's just get that bit off the lathe before we go any further. Charlie's got another colour for us, so we've got a nice bright yellow. Let's pop a bit of that on the float itself. I like to leave a little bit of natural colour coming through. It's just, especially on the cork, it sort of looks nice, but we do need something to see. Especially, like I say, as it gets darker at night, so take a few coats. Instantly that paint gets absorbed. No one's mentioned anything about sanding sealer. Yes, of course we could use sanding sealer, and that will help with this come through. I mean, this jar actually needs to be shook a little bit more. That's right, Charlie. Of course, while we're shaking that first coat is drying quite nicely. I think we need a little bit more on there, and I can do that later on. So I didn't mention earlier, we said about the Sharpies just then. I tend to use Sharpies as a means of breaking. Look, we need that to dry and then recoat that again, really, or a little bit of sealer before we put that on. But Sharpies just as a means of breaking the lines. So we've got paint here. I don't want to just finish with the paint. Don't worry that it's bouncing around a little bit. Hold it nice and firm. Ta-da. I'm not going to try it on the cork because I know it doesn't work on the cork. There's a big spodge I've missed. I would probably go a third colour, but we're going to leave that for the moment. Let me just get that out of the chuck. And we'll talk about finish. Obviously you're going to touch up the ends that you couldn't quite get to there. And you don't have to have them this long, of course. You can break your floats up. There we are, Charlie, if you would. One of our little kebab. A kebab. That's a sign of a good night. Kebab sticks and wine bottle corks. Alright, there you go. So in terms of finishing those, so let me again pop that one down to dry. If you notice on these, okay, really important that they're sealed well, because we start putting these in water, certainly the airbrush paints won't keep the water out, and the timber will start swelling up and all things will go wrong. So we want to make sure that they're resistant to water. They are a wearing part, like the fishing lures as well, guys. You know, these are wearing parts. They're not a lifetime make. So don't expect them to last forever, but we want to keep them for a few trips at least. So my finish that I use for them, I actually dunk them in a jam jar of melamine lacquer. I find they're really good to put drying there as well. So dunk them in, obviously up to where don't get your fingertips covered. Dunk them into there. Then one of those little clips I used last week when we were attaching the netting to the lure. So one of those little crocodile clips. Just hold them, and then you can hang those on a bit of wire, either from the workshop ceiling, or make a little stand for them. When that's dry, flip them over, just repeat the process, do the same thing on the other side. You know you get a good coating that way, rather than brushing them on and then falling all over the place, you know. I mean, you could just dunk them in the tin if you want to, I guess, rather than in a jam jar. I just found it easier that way. So there we are. Have we got any questions coming through at all, Charlie, before we disappear?
No, but before we do disappear,
Yeah.
so guys, today, something me and Finn have been working on for months now has gone live on Cohenway Wood Turning. His plans for his German smokers, a step-by-step guide how to make them. Absolute bargain, £6 each. There's a link on his Instagram page to his website to go to his Etsy page, where all of his other makes are on there as well. So you guys should go check him out. It's such a good guide, tells you everything you need to know, all the drawings. Dad's been on our cases for months now, and we've finally done it, so he's happy for once.
Thank you, Charlie.
So yeah, so it's all up.
Thank you, Charlie's just got me fired. But yeah, the smokers we made a few months ago, the
plans. The boys have been working hard on those, so as I said on my Etsy page, if you're keen to see how it's done or make your own, then there they are. Guys, thank you ever so much. Well, Tuesday, aren't we? I keep forgetting the days, but Thursday, what have we got coming? Thursday, oh my goodness, we got the pens part 3. Every time we do pens, someone asks, can we make it a little bit harder? So on Thursday, we've got a fountain pen, and the particular type of fountain pen kit where we've got to notch out for a clip. And then one of the difficult materials to turn is the polyester with the coffee beans. So we're going to do a coffee bean pen. And for that we're going to use, again, another question was one of the big Empress pen kits, one of those big thick pens. So we've got a lot of pen making to do on Thursday. Okay, so that, now there has been a lot of questions about chucks and centers today. So next week it's all about products, chucks and centers on the Tuesday, and then turning tools on the Thursday. This is a really useful one if you're just starting out in the turning, if you're having a few problems with chucks and centers and turning tools in particular. And I'm not just going to go high end, we're going to go through the whole spectrum from early stages of your turning journey right the way through to advanced. So chucks and centers will go from the 80 to the 100 to the 114, different types of jaws, and all different types of centers, and how you can adapt some of them to be used in a certain process. And then on Thursday, the turning tools. So we're going to look at several types. We're going to look at the craft range. So your beginner set, and there's six in that set. And then we're going to go to the Crown, the PM, the M42 steel. So the upper end. And we'll just look at the types of tools that you expect to find in those sets and how they're going to be used. So there's going to be a little bit more skew work then as well. Bowl gouge angles, all those sorts of things. Alright guys, so until then, from me and my #1 sunning agent behind the camera, Charlie, thank you very much. Hope you have a nice warm couple of days until Thursday. Happy turning. I'll see you on Thursday, same time, same place, my workshop. Bye bye.